Guys, welcome back to the Meta Perspective. It's episode 5. I spent some time on campus at Brock University. We have 3 industry professionals sitting with me. Amazing perspective, lots of back and forth. I can't wait for you guys to check it out. Spend some time with us. Welcome back to the Meta Perspective. Today, I have an amazing panel. I'd like you to welcome Tony from IG Wealth Management. We have also Andrew Perrie from Revel Realty, and we have Andrew Kulakowsky back with us from EXP Realty. Guys, today we're here to talk about home ownership. A few weeks ago, I spent some time on campus at Brock University and went back in time, my university days, and thought about it. It's pretty amazing to spend some time there, but I spoke to a lot of people on campus about home ownership and getting their ideas on what the prospects of home ownership is going to be going forward. So I'd like you to take a look at this clip and then we'll get right into it. What does home ownership mean to you?
Scary.
Scary?
I don't know if I can buy a house when I'm done school. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
The thing is, I don't know, and I'm scared to.
Back in 2015, you can get it was 400,000. Now it's up near at the million mark now.
Everything's super high there right now. Even outside of the GTA, we're so far and it's still crazy. They just increased property taxes there 10% this year, which is another crazy expense on top of the already expensive prices.
Makes me worry thinking down the line, I don't know what to do. I don't even want to think about it, to be honest.
Many feel that home ownership is unachievable. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a lot of, some of the words out there were that it's going to be just too expensive. It's too hard, unachievable. So why do you think that is?
There's a lot of despair, but some of the social media has inflicted some of that pain on our young youth. Whereas you look at it and say, really, has it changed much over the last 40, 50 years? Maybe not. Maybe the perspective has changed. And, our youth getting the same information possibly that our younger people from a generation ago received. I think, too, a little bit on the risk-taking side, right? A lot of immigrants would take more risk in the old days. And I'm finding, actually, the new migrants from around the world coming into Canada are much more risk-taking. So that's something very interesting. I'm not sure how you guys see it.
If you want my honest opinion, in college, I wasn't thinking about home ownership. I was thinking about where the next party was, if we were going to win at intramural hockey, and, seeing friends when I come home, during the holiday vacations.
But how old were you when you bought your first home?
28.
Okay, so relatively still not that far after.
Yeah, so that was about 8 or 9 years ago. But in today's perspective, I do think that, things do get pushed back. But it was interesting to see that they were even talking about it or have thought about it, because I'll be honest, I don't think I was.
Yeah, no, it's true. I agree with Andrew. One of the biggest things that I feel is influencers in your life. Who's in your surrounding, your network, that's maybe pushing you towards, home ownership. And in my scenario, I bought my house when I was 25. I had someone that was pushing me to do it.
Right.
And that was my biggest driving force in moving forward in the real estate world.
And mine was a mentor. I mean, I had a cousin of mine older than me. And at 19, I bought my own place, absolutely clueless, trying to figure it out. I went to the bank by myself, and I don't recommend that but on any accord, but, having those influencers, family or cousins, or could be anybody, or maybe an older mentor that maybe had done it in the past.
Exactly.
I think that's somewhat lacking nowadays, maybe in the change in the family dynamics.
Well, that's a very good point. Sorry, Vince, but that's what I was going to say. Because growing up, the only person who I knew owned a home was parents with kids. So it was a family atmosphere. So, and that would make sense because people are, there's so many stats out there that people don't want to get into long-term relationships until later on. That some of them don't even want to have kids. And then yes, exactly. So once those once those commitments happen, then they're willing to look at it. Because I didn't, like I said, well, yes, okay, I was 28, 29, but it was when I had met my partner, she was pregnant, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go buy.
Right, and what I noticed that there was some despair on campus that I realized that some people are just too unachievable in their mind, or it's not even there at this point, right? Some people would say that generation is not willing to sacrifice as much. Would you agree?
I would say this. Hopefully, they would find somebody that would sow some positive energy into the conversation, because I think you're right. There is more despair, but the hope is still there if they can garner the advice of professionals or loved ones that have done it. And I think finding those role models can really change the dynamics of this young generation, because my heart breaks for them, because they're very intelligent kids. They're very well educated.
Absolutely.
Yet lacking in, the one gentleman had said, nobody talked about this in high school. Well, that is the problem. Yeah. Nobody is talking about that. And so there is, amidst of the despair, there is hope if they would stretch out their hand and find the right person to connect with. Do they have the ability or the wherewithal to ask for advice? That is really different, especially now, again, in the dynamics of the social media, everything within 2 seconds. Are they willing to sit down and talk with a professional real estate agent, a mortgage broker, a financial advisor that can give them that insight, to have that hope and a goal, but not only the goal. The goal is nice, but not enacting the goal is just words. So how do you get that goal enacted? So do you have a plan, right? And it's that something you sow that visualization into a young person. And it just hurts my heart, because they're wonderfully talented, young, intelligent people that can really excel with the right advice.
Yeah, and I mean, it does. In order to be able to be willing to seek advice, you have to kind of humble yourself. There's a certain level of humility that's required. I know in speaking to some people of that age category, a lot of them don't want to ask for help. Okay, guys, getting back into it, I want you to check out this clip. Have a look.
Is homeownership a top priority for you right now at this age, or no? What's your biggest priority right now?
Biggest priority would just be getting through school right now,
yeah,
and then finding a job or like a career I could have.
I hope it would be like by my late 20s, but now if I'm being honest, it's like pushing past 30, because I'm just gonna finish school, have to do another school for 4 more years, make money, pay off my student debt, and then settle in. That's a very long time, and I don't think whatever I earn before I'm 30 is going to be enough for me buying a house.
I really don't know. I could see it, if I get lucky, maybe by the time I'm 30, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's 10 years after that.
Do you see yourself owning your first home?
Like mid-30s maybe?
42% of first-time home buyers is 35 years and older.
It was evident to me that home ownership did not seem to be really high on the priority list for these guys here on campus. So why would that be, Angie? What do you think?
I think the narrative behind, let's look at why, right? Like, why is it not a priority? And it goes back to what we talked about earlier. I think there's a narrative out there in the media that, is pushing the agenda, saying that homeownership is unattainable. Prices are so high. Interest rates are so high. So I truly think that that's a big part of why these young kids are really feeling that.
So they're essentially feeling like it's just unachievable. So
absolutely,
why even make it a priority?
They're writing it off. All right, I feel they're writing it off immediately.
And you make a great point, but I think also the concept of a larger debt loads on younger people. Education is much more expensive, and many kids now are taking on a lot more debt earlier in life. And we're probably in my generation, we wouldn't buy the brand new car. We would buy the junker and drive it around. Now, they want to have a nice car. They want to have all the nice toys, the phones and the laptops, and that requires capital. And so maybe the concept of more debt load has pushed the probability of owning a home to a later date. And it's interesting, the dynamics, I think you had mentioned earlier, the age of individuals buying a home now for the first time has gone up dramatically versus maybe a generation ago. And so maybe some of that sacrificially is not there anymore, or the propensity to more debt earlier in life versus maybe a generation ago.
And
that's something, what do you guys think?
So to me, Tony, that sounds like it's a financial issue around education. So when you're looking at a home, they're not understanding the full financial vehicle that is home ownership, where they might just say, hey, I'm supposed to own a home because that's what you're supposed to do. We're supposed to have our kids, dogs, snowplow the driveway, where they're not thinking about, okay, once I've owned it for a year, 2 years, how can I refinance and pull my money out and buy another property that can pay for the car, pay for the new iPhone, or pay for, retirement. There's a lot of people that aren't necessarily going into just traditional jobs anymore. There's a lot of self-employed people, entrepreneurs. What's your retirement look like? And that's how, home ownership.
And job stability has been another crucial point to this, because the average person in my generation had probably 3 careers. Today, it's about 15 to 17.
Yeah.
So now the lack of continuity in your work is now really affecting your ability to buy a home. So that continuity in employment is also an issue when it comes to the ability to afford and to have that continuity in income.
I want to know what you guys think of this. I mean, spending 4 years in university, maybe 6 years, 8 years for some, right? That delays that home ownership. There are more kids going to university now than ever before, or some sort of post-secondary education. You think that has had an impact?
I think it absolutely does. Definitely.
Yeah. So it's changed the priorities. If you notice on the clip there, the guy's like, listen, I want to finish university. That's my first thing. And then I want to find a job. And then there's like home ownership has fallen in that list of priorities, right?
Well, the employment history, is super, super important when, like what you said, when trying to actually get approved for a mortgage. If you don't have that history, credit history, employment history, then you're delaying it even further.
Let me ask one more thing in regards to this. There are a lot of vices out there now, a lot of distractions, a lot of small little expenses that add up, right? Whether it's Netflix. Yes. And this is, talking to this generation, I noticed they're all getting hit with like Amazon cost, Netflix,
Disney.
Uber Eats, Disney, like boom, boom, boom. All this takes a toll on that credit card bill. At the end of the day, you're not going to have that disposable income to put into savings to then save for a down payment. Do you notice this is a problem?
Yes. So there's a battle of the dollar, right? And so every corporation out there is looking to get the residual from your dollar.
Yep.
And so whether it be the Amazons, the Disneys, or whatever, they're looking at getting a piece of pie of each dollar you make. And so it is true. Those were non-existent 40 years ago. And this is a major issue because there's soft costs, but they all add up.
Yeah. And perhaps this has created a lack of motivation in this generation.
That's right. And I think it's based on instant gratification, right? Because you pick up that phone, you're like, yes, buy. Where if I had to go up, and buy a T-shirt or something, I have to get in my car, put my snow boots on, and get myself to the store, try it on, figure out it didn't fit. And then I'd be like, okay, now I got to go back home. Where now they could just buy it right from their phone. It's instant. It's like a like on their social media. It's like somebody's commented and engaged with them. And that's why, they look at their credit card statement at the end of the month and are blown away at how much they actually.
There are studies out there showing the delay in gratification, and they've actually done these tests with young children. And the delay of gratification can actually dictate a lot about their success.
Yeah.
The ones that were able to delay gratification
Good point. Interesting.
were much more successful long term.
Was that a one marshmallow now or
like
2 in 5 minutes?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so they did that testing with young people. And now I'm not a psychologist, nor do I want to pretend to be one, but it is something about delayed gratification. And maybe we have a migrant surge over the last year, about 1.2 million, I believe, in Canada. And that migrant surge are people that are coming really from poverty, many of them, I'm speaking generality. And so it'll be interesting to see the dynamics because they're coming with a risk mindset because they don't have anything. And now they have an opportunity. They can see this great Canadian country that we have, or American country if you're from going into America, opportunity galore. And they may seize that opportunity maybe more so than maybe somebody growing up here as a child.
Okay, guys, welcome back. Let's check out another clip before we get started.
Have they prepared you adequately for life?
No.
Like for real life?
No.
No?
I wasn't worrying about this like 4 years ago.
No.
They don't teach you about like mortgages, interest rates, or they don't teach you about like taxes like that in high school.
Taking independence in the home, making a lot of the payments, dealing with a lot of the chores.
Owning your own home.
Everything that you learn, you either learn from like other sources, I guess.
Now let's talk about school. And did school prepare them? Because evidently you can see their opinion is schooling did not prepare them for real life. So do you agree with that?
Yeah, I didn't really love school myself personally, and there were a lot of things I look at now in my life and go, why didn't they teach us this? Why didn't they do this? Could I have done it earlier? So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of school. I think school is important, absolutely. I think applying yourself as a young person, I think that's the biggest. That's a very important step in your life. But going back to that, Vince. You know what? I agree with a lot of what they said. There's not a lot of that fundamentals that's been talked about in school.
Right. And what could schools do better now? And like, what should they be teaching? Andrew, give me your thoughts. Top 3 things they should be teaching.
You think if you're running, a gym, a golf course, a ski hill, a resort, that you would have to learn about money, right? So we did have an accounting class, but it was just like a click and drag. It was debits in credits, learning about the differences between the two, and it had no literacy aspect. It was more organization of an Excel spreadsheet.
It's so funny you mention that, because I had the privilege of going to speak to grade 12 students recently, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I done it 2 years ago, and the same gazed in la la land.
But were they interested, or
you know what? I would say a third of them were very engaged.
Okay.
And then I would engage them with questions to get them involved. And then the rest was basically like, when is this over?
I know what you're talking.
Exactly. And no interest. But there was 3 or 4 that were dynamic. They were asking great questions. And then you could see almost like a light bulb go on.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about it, and I go, wait, could this be the little spark? So I talked to them about simplicity things, about first-time home buyer. What is an RSP? How can you use that? What does the tax-free do for you? How can you think about buying a home? And what would it take? And understanding leverage and in mortgages and all that. And so the ones that were listening and engaged, you saw a little spark. So unfortunately, though, the schools are doing a horrible job. Kudos to the guidance counselor that wanted that spoken to the grade 12 students.
Invited you in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They invited me in, which is, bar none, I wish was done in every high school.
I agree. Practical, to Tony's point, practical experience, throwing them in the fire, co-ops. I was fortunate in college to do co-ops.
Right.
And it took me from the schooling aspect of it, learning the basic, accounting principles, to going to the dealership and actually learning what the sales managers and GMs are actually doing on a day-to-day basis. And if it wasn't for that, I feel, you're coming out of school.
How many of us have taken like a test, right, or read a book on a course, and it's very different in practice, like in real life.
Real estate's one of the perfect examples, right?
Well,
Actually how it works.
it's interesting because I've also trained and mentored MBA graduates from university.
Right.
And in my years in management, it was mind-boggling how little they knew about just regular money. They were very good at doing a test and do a mathematical equation, but to actually implement it on a day-to-day, cash flow sheet, or to explain that. And then the other part of it is you can learn something, but are you able to implement?
Well, and I think one big piece that we're missing as well is the networking aspect and learning how to talk and deal with people. That goes hand in hand. Finding yourself a mentor might not be as easy as it seems. Just finding somebody who's gone and done it. Having the ability to, I think even when I was a kid, I lacked the ability to, think about my future. I can only think about it right now. And had I had somebody, kind of holding my hand, but that right person, and then that opens doors to an even bigger network.
Right.
Absolutely. That just always helps you get stuff done.
So it sounds like, okay, so let's...
And it sounded like all of us, I didn't like school. I mean, Andrew, and I think Andrew, all of
It was
you
fun
guys,
to party and
so it
everything,
was-
but I mean,
right. So it was more or less to get
I wanted to
through.
work.
Yeah, I mean, I never really studied much, and I kind of just paid attention, and then kind of, for me, it worked out. It doesn't work out like that for everybody.
There's still a lot.
But as you saw in the clip, a lot of people were saying that school didn't prepare them. But is it only the school's responsibility?
Well, that's a very good point.
Who else's responsibility is it?
Honestly, after 19, it's your own. It's your own. Obviously, your parents, but you don't get to choose your parents.
Right.
So, okay, the parents' responsibility to give basic information, yes, but I don't think it's ultimately everybody, because where your path lies in life.
It would be wonderful if the parents were engaging
Absolutely.
with this at a young age. So can you imagine even just having a little, chore book where you get paid 10 cents and, you mark it in there, and that, thankfully, my wife was great at that. She would actually have the kids do chores, and then they would get a stipend at the end of the week, but they would mark it down. And they actually kept a log.
It's like their pay stub.
Exactly. And it was really interesting. It was on very simple, basic principles. But, I would encourage any parent out here listening today to take your young children and to maybe use the chores as a segue into talking about money, saving, going down to the bank and opening up a little account, putting those $10 in or $15 in, get them exposed to the banking system, getting them exposed to remove the fear. I remember when my kids were in that 10 to 14 age bracket, they were actually nervous to go and pay for something at the counter. And I thought that was crazy because when we were kids, we were told to go, but we were told to go to the store and go buy the stuff.
Walk to the store.
And we walked to the store and just pay the guy, right?
Welcome back, guys. One more clip before we end off. Check it out.
Crazy, like prices, the home prices,
They're
right?
crazy. Like we looked at the house, it's like $3,000 to rent now.
Gonna be enough for me buying a house.
No way we can afford it with a part-time job.
Even investing now and like down the line, it's like
I really don't know.
Okay, so if you've noticed, for many of them, it's almost like they're normalizing the idea of renting forever and not buying. Forever. Notice that. Almost like they're okay with the idea that homeownership is not a possibility, that I'm just going to rent. All good.
Right.
You agree?
No.
Disagree?
No. I agree that you should rent to teach yourself how to manage your own money and set your own expectations on what the future would look like. I just think that we're walking down a very dangerous path. I think it was Grant Cardone in the States who said in the next, 30, 40, 50 years, you're going to have to rent everything. Rent your house, rent your car, even said rent your clothes.
Wow.
Now, while I would love to have my closet on a consistent rotation basis, I don't think I would like that same that same path for home ownership and where I live. So I don't agree with that.
Renting, okay, so let's rewind. So as a young person learning, coming up, that really is, thinking about home ownership or wanting to get into it, I think, going through the natural stages of understanding what rent is and the pros and cons of renting, why you need to rent, but still have home ownership in the back of your mind. I mean, some people want to rent and there's nothing wrong with that. The people who, are renting for a reason at a given time, okay, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, make sure you understand your options, make sure you explore, you have the right people that are still putting that bug in your ear about home ownership. So you at least, have something else to maybe look forward to or work towards. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. But I mean, if you think of a 20-year-old on campus who's saying to themselves and actually saying it outwardly that I will never buy and I'm okay with it.
And that might be
That's troubling.
yes, I think that might be a little bit of despair guised as okay.
Yeah.
So I would say this: we live in a capitalistic society where home ownership is being involved in capitalism. So investments and real estate, they're both important. These are capital requirements or capital ownership, and they then help you to succeed in this society. Now, you can do that by renting and saving money and putting that aside. But a young person saying that, I think, is more maybe have given up or hasn't really given it enough time.
They're rationalizing.
Right, versus somebody maybe 45 or 50 who maybe lost a spouse, maybe went through a divorce, maybe is thinking of traveling a lot, or then maybe renting makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. It's different.
Correct.
Don't you feel that the idea of capitalism, though, because that word has been attacked
Yes.
heavily, almost like you're made to feel guilty
Right.
for, earning a living.
But what's worse? Everybody wants to rent. Who's going to own the houses that you live in? The people who invested their entire lives into capitalism. You're just feeding the monster and making it bigger. And that's okay. I'll go work for BlackRock then, if that's how it goes, because I want to still own houses.
And I think it's important. The dream of capitalism is not dead. Unfortunately, it's been mired in the mud with socialism and social media. And so I think personally, if you're going to succeed in North America, you really need to think about equity ownership, be it again in liquid investments, real estate investments, and both, right? So I think ultimately in the end, that is a little bit of despair we saw from some of the young people. And hopefully somebody can sow some positive mindset into that. Again, making that decision, but with a clear mindset versus just making the statement.
Yeah. So how do we prevent that from happening? Like the normalization of rent? Because I see this happening for sure. There's, in fact, from a government perspective, there are incentives, and there will be more incentives pumped into the economy to encourage investment in purpose rental.
So remember, somebody will be owning those properties.
Yes.
So less and less ownership, more and more richer capitalists. Instead of having that as an idea for the masses, it'll be less and less. So actually, this concept of renting will only make some certain people richer and richer and richer, versus a mindset of embracing capitalism across the board will make more people wealthy, broad-based versus a narrow base. That's my opinion on that.
So how do we present it? How do we prevent it from happening? Any ideas?
Education. Education is obviously, is one of the biggest things. Education.
Well, education, because, one of the biggest arguments I hear is that, well, okay, but now I've got to pay for all the utilities and all the maintenance costs. Yeah, okay, but if you actually own that house, when you go to sell it through appreciation and, all that equity you've built, will pay that off and then some, tenfold, and people just don't understand that.
Thank you for watching the Meta Perspective. Guys, thanks for being here today. A few takeaways. Number one, after being on campus, I realized there was a lot of despair. So the first thing is honestly, get that desperation out of your mind. Like the mindset of realizing it's possible is really, really important. And the second thing is the education piece. Obviously, if you're 24, 25, you can't go back in time and get re-educated, but now look forward. Pick up a book on financial literacy, get to know people in your community, pick up the phone and call an expert in your area and get to know what they're all about, and grab some of their knowledge and start getting interested in it. And I think naturally homeownership will become one of your top priorities, because if it is a top priority, it's going to definitely materialize at some point. And they say what gets measured gets done, right? So I think those are three takeaways from today that I would urge all of you listening today and watching today to implement into your life going forward. So if you're in your young 20s and you're not prioritizing homeownership, someday I think you'll regret it. So get to it. Thank you.